Hey there guys, I am the Six Machine and welcome back to another Warhammer video. I know I missed doing a video when he was officially announced, but I'm making up for it now. Warhammer community have shown us some of the rules for the upcoming, newly resized and, to be honest, hugely improved Belakor. His model is, let's be honest, quite possibly one of the best that Games Workshop have ever created. It just oozes demonic coolness with his awesome sword, those imposing wings, and even the base itself is really amazingly detailed and fits with the rest of his overall look and his theme really well. But do his rules stack up compared to the absolute terror that he looks like? Well, in a word, yes. Yes, they do. So let's take a look. Now, we don't have a full stat line or, importantly, his points cost just yet, but we can see a few of his rules and weapons, which gives us a really good look at how good he's going to be both offensively and defensively on the tabletop. So let's start off with his sword, the Blade of Shadows. This used to come in at strength +1, and often completely over the top, -5 AP, and a flat 3 damage. It's not a bad profile, and with his current stat line, his strength is 6, so it did push you to strength 7, which was nice. The flat 3 damage is much more reliable than a d6 in my opinion, and with 6 attacks he could definitely put a hurt on anything he targeted. But now it's even better than that, and I'll be honest with you, it's not just slightly improved, it has improved hugely. It has got so much more potent. So now, not only does it have a sweeping strike profile, which gives you double the number of attacks at strength user, -3 AP and 1 damage, which is great for clearing out those pesky hordes of infantry that may try to tie you up, but now the main swing that you can do with it is called Piercing Strike, and oh boy, this is one of the most powerful attacks I think I've seen in Warhammer 40,000. So this comes in at strength +4, -4 AP, D3 +3 damage, already, to be honest, a huge improvement compared to his current sword, but here's the cherry on top. Your opponent cannot take invulnerable saves against these attacks. That is just incredible. With Belakor's new model, I wouldn't be surprised if his strength and attacks are both bumped up from the current 6 to, at least 7 on the strength profile, maybe even more for his attacks, but I think 7 is the minimum he is going to be in these two stat lines. But even if you consider the profile he has now, that's still 6 strength 10 attacks at -4 AP, doing an average of 5 damage per unsaved wound, and ignoring invulnerable saves. So, Thunderhammer Stormshield Terminators, dead. Blade Guard Vets, dead. Guilliman, dead. I mean, yeah, even, the mighty Lord of the Ultramarines will statistically fall before Belakor with some average rolling. He really is an absolute beatstick of a character, and honestly, I can't think of any enemy, even Mortarion himself, that won't come away seriously hurting if you manage to charge Belakor into them. He may not kill Mortarion, but he is definitely going to do a huge amount of damage and definitely bracket him before Mortarion gets to swing back. But that isn't all the Dark Master has going for him either. His defenses are also equally impressive. He now has the Immortal Vigor ability, which replaces his old demonic 5-up invulnerable save, buffing it to a lovely 4-up, but also in addition to that, if your opponent makes a ranged attack against Belakor, they now have to subtract 1 from the wound roll, which is... There's a lot of -1 to hit around in the game, as we'll see in a moment, but -1 to wound is quite rare, and it's really powerful, making things like las cannons and melters and missile launchers wounding on 4s instead of 3s, and small arms like bolters will be dropping from an already unreliable 5-up to wound to a 6-up, which massively buffs his survivability against not only bigger guns, but small light arms fire that could be used to just chip away at his wounds and bring him down that way. And not only that, but he still retains his Shadow Form ability. This currently allows him to re-roll his 5-up invulnerable save, and it appears as though he has lost that, but don't worry, all is not lost, as the 4-up invulnerable he has gained is almost as good as a 5-up rerollable. The difference is around sort of 5% or so it's not a huge deal. And in replacement of that ability, Shadow Form now gives him 2 abilities, both of which I would say are arguably even better than the reroll. So what Shadow Form does now is that not only can your opponent never reroll a hit against Belakor, no captain reroll, no command point reroll, no marker light reroll, nothing. It's just a flat dice roll to hit Belakor, which again really improves his survivability against, big castled up units being buffed by characters and Death Stars and that kind of thing. But in addition to that, he also imposes a flat -1 to hit penalty against his hit rolls, both in melee and ranged. So not only does he have a 4-up invulnerable save, but he also has a flat -1 to hit, -1 to be wounded by ranged attacks, and your opponent can never reroll hits against him. And to go on something that I said earlier, with his new model, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes up to toughness 7 as well. Currently he's toughness 6, but if you look at him, how much bigger he is, how much more imposing he is, I do think that toughness 7 is not guaranteed, but it's very likely that he's going to be improved to toughness 7 when we see his full stat line. He is going to be really tough for your opponents to take down. Maybe not Mortarion tough, to be fair, but I definitely think he is going to be in sort of the top 3 most survivable characters in the game. Even things like Eradicators are going to be, on average, not getting a single unsaved wound through, with, their 6 shots hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, and then giving you your 4-up invulnerable save, meaning that around 0.75 unsaved wounds should go through. So yes, he is going to be one heck of a tough cookie to crack. Now, as I said, we haven't seen his full profile, and I do think, personally, based on his new model and much bigger size, he is likely going to be getting some more strength, some more toughness, and maybe more attacks. But here is where I think it may be a bit of a double-edged sword, and that is because I also think he will be getting a bump in wounds. Now, that may not be a bad thing, you say, but at the moment he is 8 wounds, so he can be easily protected with Lookout Sir in your armies. But if he goes up to the number I'm going to go with, which is about 15 or 16 wounds, I think based on his model size and other models that size, that's where I'm going to place him. I may be wrong, but 15 or 16 wounds I think is reasonable, and that means that he will be above that 10 wounds threshold, where he will be targetable by your enemy's entire force turn 1. So that really could spell bad news for him, even with all of his new survivability buffs. Now, do I think this is going to make him unplayable? No. I mean, obviously a lot depends on how many points he is, but as we have said, he is very survivable, and with those extra wounds, it is genuinely going to take a lot of dedicated firepower to take him out in a single turn, but it is something to consider, even with, his increased wounds, the 4-up invulnerable save, the -1 to be hit, and the -1 to wounding. It's not going to be impossible for your enemy's army to take him out, because you can't just keep him safe behind a unit of demons as you march your way up the board. The final cool thing to mention, which was teased in this article, is that he uses a new psychic discipline as well, the Noctic discipline. Now, we haven't seen this before, and the article teases that we will have to keep our eyes peeled for some more news later this year. So does this mean there's going to be some new chaos or demonic codexes on the horizon? I think we can pretty much guarantee there is going to be at least something chaotic coming for us in 2021. So that's it. Belakor in not quite all, but a lot of his full glory. I absolutely love the model, and I am sorry that I didn't do a video talking about the model when it was officially announced, but I was unfortunately quite busy that week with work. But honestly, it's so great, in my opinion, to see these big centerpiece models get some incredible rules and get some incredible, not only killing power, but survivability that they deserve, so that they match what you think of them in the lore, and so that you don't feel bad bringing them on the tabletop. I've seen some people say that rules like this harken towards going back to some kind of Hero Hammer edition, where your generals just fight and your troops basically do nothing. I don't think that's the case. Like, you can still absolutely kill things like Mortarion and Belakor and the Silent King and the Nightbringer, all that kind of stuff, but they've made them killy enough and scary enough and also survivable enough so that they don't just get wiped off the board turn 1, which I think is a really hard thing to balance, but I think so far they've done it pretty well. And with this guy, obviously, as I said, depending on points, But I think so far with what we've seen of Belakor's rules, he is going to be very, very hard for you to kill turn 1, but not impossible, which is exactly how it should be. I really can't wait to see what he is points-wise, as well as what other tricks he may have up his demonic sleeves, and also I'm quite intrigued to see what he can do with this new Noctic Psychic Discipline, whether that helps him improve his survivability even more, or if it's kind of something like the old Law of Shadows in Warhammer Fantasy, where you could like teleport around the board and do movement-related shenanigans and that kind of thing. But we will have to wait and see what other armies can use it. If it's a completely new discipline, is it going to be usable for demons, or is it going to be usable for Chaos Marines, or is it one that is going to be solely restricted to Belakor? So that's all for me, but what do you think of him? Do you think his stat line is going to change much, or will he keep much of the old values that he has now? And I'd also like to know who you would take if you had to take a character to take on Belakor in single melee combat. Who would you bring? Would you send Mortarion, the Nightbringer, or maybe even the Silent King to give it a go? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more Warhammer content from me. But until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.